This is an example of what can go wrong with capitalism. Hello. I hope this is going to be a short video because I've got to get back to sorting out the kitchen drawers. We had some guests here the other day and part of the meal was a cheese board and I couldn't find any of my cheese knives. That's because I hardly ever use them, except when I want to be posh, of course. Well, as a matter of fact, I did find one. It was a very simple, everyday one. I have a couple of really classy ones that I got as wedding presents, that sort of thing, but I couldn't find them. So today I decided to reorganize my various cutlery drawers and the drawers where I just shoved stuff when we moved into the house here 4 years ago or whenever it was. And while I was checking everything out, I found this. Do you know what it is? Some of you older lot will. It's a hole punch for eggs. For those who don't know, you put the egg in here. You know, it's curved. And this whole thing here is on a spring. And inside here, there's a little pin, a fixed pin. And you press the egg down and the end of the egg is pierced by this pin. It punches a hole in the bottom of the egg. You know, you've got to get it right. It's the bit where that little air chamber is at the bottom of the egg. For those who remember these things, do you remember why you had to do it? It's because when you boiled an egg for your breakfast, the pressure of the warming egg expanding inside the shell in the hot water frequently cracked the shell. And you came back 3 minutes later to a streaky mess of broken shell and tendrils of leathery egg white like hermit crab's legs sticking out from the half a coconut it was using as a shell. And that was because from around, I suppose, the 1970s until, well, until the 2000s, I think, eggs used to crack almost every time when you boiled them. They don't do that anymore, do they? I haven't used this for years. In fact, I'd forgotten all about it. So I started thinking about what was going on in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. That would require an egg punch. Sorry, my dog is requiring some attention. Yeah? Who am I talking to? Yeah? Well, actually, while I'm taking this break here, I'll tell you I'm Graniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I'm also on Twitter and Gab, where I let you know when I've uploaded a new video. Please like this video. Please share it. Please subscribe to my channel, whichever one you're watching it on. And if you're watching it on YouTube, click the notification button, or you won't find out when I've uploaded new videos. All the links are in the description, including the links to donation sites if you want to use them. But if you don't, a like would be very nice anyway, and it helps my channel get, moved around the internet. So I'd appreciate that. Okay, let's get back to this hole punch here. What was happening was the battery system of egg production. The poor little buggers were confined in cages, well, little bigger than themselves, on wire floors. And while they went mad, and they did go mad in their confinement, they laid, oh, sorry, just a minute. I sent him to his daddy. So while these beasts were confined in those cages, laying egg after egg until age caught up with them, and they were put out of their miserable existence, of course, they produced many eggs, all of which had inferior, weak shells. This went on for, well, years and years before animal rights organisations and journalists who cared about such things exposed the conditions, and various laws were passed restricting this practice. It was EU-wide, it's not just the British. It took a while, though. They started talking about it in the late 90s, but it actually didn't come into full effect until 2012. Anyway, now there are still batteries, but there are various modifications to them. There are areas allocated to the hens where they can scratch the ground and perch and socialise a bit. And of course, there are the barn hen houses where hens actually get to go out for a while, and there are free-range eggs as well. And since then, eggshells are much more reliable. And because of that, I don't need to use one of these anymore. So I was going to get rid of it in some way when I started to think about what those batteries did. They didn't just exploit the hens, did they? Because that method of rearing eggs required the intervention of a gadget. This gadget. So some semi-slave in China had to make it, didn't they? It didn't, well, usually a she. So some corporation could sell it to me to modify the eggs I was already paying for. Eggs that were being produced cheaply by subjecting hens to lives of utter misery. It's the most compelling example of the least attractive part of capitalism that I can think of. And as you know, I'm no socialist, but there are faults with any human system, and this is an example of what can go wrong with capitalism. The companies wanted to maximise the profit they were making out of those chickens, so they kept them in terrible conditions, and they got eggs that looked like eggs and tasted like eggs, but the shells were practically falling apart. Which you might say was the chickens' way of screaming for help. Meanwhile, the chicken battery owners were raking in huge profits, and then the consumers were forced not only to buy their eggs, because there was a while when there was hardly anything else, but they had to buy one of these as well. So another company was making a profit out of us on the egg punches, so we ended up paying twice. That meant 3 complete groups were being exploited: the hens, of course, the Chinese factory workers, and then us, the consumers. It's something to think about, isn't it? But we can also remember that our freedom of speech meant that we could pull ourselves out of this moral hole. When people got wind of what was going on, our politicians started passing laws to improve the conditions, so even in intensive egg production, there are places for hens to roost and scratch and socialise a bit, as I said. And there are far more barn-produced eggs now, where the birds actually get to go outside sometimes, and of course there are more free-range eggs as well. I'm quite sure the battery conditions aren't wonderful, and frankly, I don't buy them, but I'm not under the same financial constraints as some people, so it's not my place to make an issue of that. But I can make an issue of this. So far in our social system, we can go the wrong way, and then we can find our way back. So as I said, I was thinking of giving this away because I don't need it anymore, but then I thought, well, hardly anyone else does. However, even so, I don't think I'll give it away. I'll hang on to it as a reminder of a cruel time that we managed to fix because of freedom of speech and, well, the capitalist system that actually created this in the first place. It works the other way as well. Okay, sorry about that. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.